What is going on, everybody? We took a little couple week hiatus post Masters. Take a deep breath, get ready for the draft. But we're in major season now. Obviously, the Masters happened. Scheffler won it. We're going to dive into him right away because he's 40 to 1 to win the Grand Slam. And it's actually kind of tasty. So I want to dive into Scottie Scheffler and just why guys like him make sports fun whenever you have a guy separating from the pack. There was some news in terms of the new restructuring of the PGA Tour, how they're going to use equity with some of their players, the impact it's going to have on LIV that just had a big event in Australia, and LIV situation right now. It's just a lot of moving parts here, but have some thoughts on everything that's going on with those two tours. And we had team golf last weekend. I didn't watch much except the last couple holes because Rory and Shane Lowry were in the mix, but have some just initial takeaways when it comes from team golf, tandem golf, and not quite sure it works. And I'm not quite sure that's what we want as the consumer. And then this weekend, the CJ Cup, which kind of is going to lead right in next week, elevated event and the PGA Championship. So we're kind of off and running here when it comes to the golf season. If you guys want to get involved on the show, we do a big mailbag on the football podcast. It's just my Instagram. I created a separate Instagram like last year at GoloPod. And it is just the Instagram for golf only. I'm going to start doing golf content in the summer now that I can get out, the sun's out, play a little golf. So fire in those DMs at GoloPod. Any golf question, whether it's on the PGA Tour, we could do some fun stuff about our own games, what's in the back, whatever. You name it, fire in there. We will interact with the people on the show because we're show of the people. So at GoloPod, fire in those DMs, and we'll talk a little professional golf, amateur golf, whatever the hell you want. But before we dive into the podcast, I got to tell you about my friends, a company I use, and they happen to be my partners. Gametime. Grab your smartphone, grab your iPad, grab wherever you download your apps, and download the Gametime app. And when you do it, download Gametime. Use the promo code GOLOW, GOLOW, and save $20 on your first pair of tickets. Concerts, comedy shows. You want to go to a game? You live in an area where your NBA team's kicking ass, taking names? Do it on us. Go to a game. Promo code GOLOW, save $20. NHL games. Whenever I see NHL games, playoff games on TV, I'm not even a hockey guy. I'll watch 10 minutes because the intensity, the crowds are incredible. If I had an NHL team in my backyard, I no longer do. They moved to Utah, and they weren't any good to begin with, but it was good. I would 1,000,000% go to a game. So download that app, Gametime, fastest growing ticketing app in America. Promo code GOLOW, save $20. Colin used to have this thing back in the day before he came to Fox. I mean, he still talks about it, but it was like one of his big takes was how he hated the underdog. He hated the little guy. And I first started listening to him when I was in college and throughout when I went to Fresno State. And it used to tick me off because I was working for the little guy. And we weren't ever good enough to make a run, but we played Boise State. And Boise State, I often thought, could like compete with USC, Texas, whoever in the SEC. Like they were a national championship contender. Now, they never got that opportunity, but I truly believe that to my core. But I've changed my thinking over time. And listen, I'm very grateful to have gone to school at Cal Poly and Fresno State, two programs that are not the University of Texas or Michigan or Ohio State when it comes to athletics, that's for sure. And now, like, as a fan, I like watching the big dogs. And I haven't watched much of the NBA playoffs. I've watched every dribble, or I did, it's over now, of the Lakers Nuggets. And it was fantastic. One of the best 5-game series I've ever seen. Mainly because I love seeing the Lakers lose, and I knew they would. But Jokic is clearly established himself as not only the best player currently in the world, but one of the best players we've ever seen. And right now he's about to win his third MVP in like 4 years. Unless someone on his team gets injured, including himself, they're going to win the NBA championship. Like he's going into hollowed territory. And I like watching guys separate from the pack. I like watching the best teams and the best players. What Patrick Mahomes just did is insanity. win his third Super Bowl in 5 years. He's established as not just the best quarterback in the NFL, but one of the best players we've ever seen. And he's like in the peak of his powers, not even 30 yet. So, like, how far can he go? My favorite athlete there's two of them, but as a kid, like anyone born in the mid 80s, Michael Jordan was spectacular. And then coming into your own as a sports fan, getting to live through Tiger Woods is something we'll probably never see again, and something I'm very, very glad that I got to watch and like really be able to defend it. Because I've often said, like, if you're in a bar arguing with someone, if you didn't grow up or were of age to watch that player, it's a hard argument. YouTube does not do justice to when you're watching a guy live, especially as you get older. Like, I can speak pretty confidently about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, about Steph Curry, about Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and Rory, whoever. I mean, the players that I've watched. It's hard for me, besides, like, yeah, I know Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, all-time greats, but to like legitimately get into an argument. Like, if we're getting into an argument about Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, even like Greg Norman and Nick Faldo, like, I don't feel as strong in my argument. I can watch all the YouTubes and 30 for 30s and everything possible on the internet. It is not the same. So watching Scottie Scheffler doing what he's currently doing is freaking awesome. Now, the sad part is the tour's in turmoil, the tour is split, and television ratings are down. Despite golf, in terms of the amateur world, never being more popular. More people are playing golf in 2024 than ever before. The access is much easier. There are a ton of courses. The public courses are absolutely packed. The waiting list at country clubs all over the country is a mile long. And golf's very, very popular. It's a unique sport, right? I played high school football. Have not played it down since. Most people that play high school football never play in college. Yet we become football fans the rest of our life. But I'm never going to throw a pass at Lambeau Field. I'm never going to run for a yard in Heinz Field, right, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. Just like I'll never shoot baskets at MSG. But I can play golf at the overwhelming majority of courses that pros play. And if you're lucky enough to run in them in the right circles, you might even get access to some of the sweet courses they play that are country clubs. It's not possible. Like, if you're a tennis player, you're not playing Wimbledon. That's what makes golf pretty special. And Tiger really brought that to light. He made it cool. I don't know if Scottie Scheffler is that, he's not even close to the level of superstar that Tiger was, but he is a special player in the peak of his powers. And after he won the Masters pretty easily, I thought the most impressive accomplishment he's had in his career, and he's won the Masters twice, was winning the next week. He literally went home. His wife was pregnant. When he gets home to Texas, she's asleep. He goes out with the boys. 48 hours later, he flies back to, the RBC at like Tuesday night, starts slow on Thursday, and then you look up on Sunday, he's kicking the shit out of everybody. And I looked on DraftKings today right now. They have a special for him to win the Grand Slam. He's 40-1. Now, I said after the Masters, the only thing, like, I think his over-under right now on majors is 2.5. That's what I would put it at. Because I think between Pinehurst and the Open Championship, he's a lock to win one of those two. The only reason I'm hesitant on the PGA Championship in Valhalla is because his wife any day could have a baby. And then the moment when you first have a baby, you don't sleep. You're sleeping in a terrible chair bed. Never had one, but seen pictures. Been to the room after my friends and brothers have had kids. But it's a life-changing moment, and a life-changing moment for you personally, especially in the short term, just with sleep, and your routine is going to be thrown off. So who knows how much practice he's going to have before the PGA. And then I started thinking, like, well, he had no practice or probably slept that much or did anything the couple days leading into the RBC, and he basically won with his fucking eyes closed. So why couldn't he win a major? Now, obviously, if his wife hasn't gone into labor, and that's a story that to me would have much more substance behind it because she could actually have the baby, that's a whole different conversation. But if the baby happens before, I don't know if I'm off him that much. And if he were to win Valhalla, that 40-1 to me probably goes down to like 12-1 immediately. Because one, I think he's winning Pinehurst. I mean, it sets up perfectly for him. And by then, he will have enough time to kind of get his routine and just get some normal sleep in order for the major push. I looked at last year, and remember, he couldn't putt last year. No, he wasn't his putting was off. He was an awful putter. He finished T10 at the Masters, which probably going to be an outlier for his career because he's going to win that thing like 5 times. And then the next 2 majors, the PGA and the US Open at LA Country Club, he finished T2 and 3rd. Again, could not putt. The British Open, which has given him some trouble, though he's only played in 3, he finished T23. And 2 years ago, his best finish in 2021 was T8. I guess my overall point is, I don't think it's crazy at all to throw a little money on him 40-1 to win the Grand Slam. Seems crazy, right? Just because of how difficult it is, how much pressure is on these majors. But for the first time since Tiger, you're like, yeah, this is real. This is very, very possible. Now, the crazy thing is, when Tiger was in his heyday, people love to make fun. Like, it was just plumbers and firemen is the type of guys he was playing. No, he played against some pretty good players. Last time I checked, like, Ernie Els could play. Vijay Singh could play. I mean, David Duval in the late 90s was pretty damn good. Now, the depth of talent was nowhere near what it is now. Not even close. But Scottie showed, like, he's not even that affected by it. I don't give a shit how good all these guys are. I'm dramatically better. Now, the irony is the one guy that could take him down is a guy that would be playing potentially in a second major, Ludwig, who is clearly a special, got a chance to be a transcendent talent. So I just think this 40-1 number, if you would have told me before the year, or just moving forward, anyone could ever win the Grand Slam again, I'd be like, it'd be shocking if a guy won 2 majors in a year, given the current crop of guys playing in these major championships and the depth of just elite players. I mean, it goes 15 deep with just high-end players. I don't know. He might just be that much better than everyone despite the baby situation. The 82-game preseason is in the books, and it's finally time for the real season. Don't miss out on any of the NBA playoff action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in tournament through the finals, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code JOHN. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code JOHN, JOHN, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. The PGA Tour. There was a story that came out, I think, a couple days ago that, let's face it, the tour's in shambles. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's embarrassing, the state of professional golf. It has nothing to do with us. It has to do with Saudis buying all these guys, Jay Monahan being just pretty bad at his job, the players not being hands-on enough, and then once Jay fucked everything up, now they're really hands-on, and ultimately they don't care what we think, which is a problem because the sport, just like all these professional sports, are very determined on how many people watch. It's about television. It's about your TV product and the ratings you do to be able to sell it. Now, the PGA Tour sold their rights a couple years ago for a lot of money. So that number is set. Like the NBA ratings are down. But it doesn't impact the players because it's a fixed number over a 10-year period of time. Now, every time you renegotiate, if it were to ever go down, it'd be a problem. But the PGA Tour is looking at another 6-7 year runway of this current deal. The problem is one of their partners, NBC, is in financial shambles. They do not have the lead analyst, which would be like the CBS not knowing who is going to be sitting next to Jim Nance 6 weeks before the NFL season. That would never happen. It would be inconceivable. Well, Kevin Kisner, who clearly should transition to TV. I love Kiss, and I hope he goes full-time to TV. They're not offering him any money. So he's like, I'm not committed to this. They fired Paul Azinger last year, which, time to go. Paul's just wasn't that good at his job. Good player, seems like a good guy. Television, not very good. Jeff Ogilvy, who I see sometimes at the gym, haven't had quite the balls to say anything. I don't know the smooth interaction. Like, hey, Jeff, podcaster. Like, hey, Jeff, loved you when you're going toe-to-toe with Tiger. I got to think of a smooth interaction. He's always doing squats. You see, he's got that long, skinny body. Obviously, I've talked to a couple people that know him, say he's a great guy. So I just need to go up and talk to him. But he's another guy that, like, they're not offering any money. And financially, they're cutting costs, which impacts the product, which they clearly struggle on. And the only reason they own the U.S. Open is because Fox, who paid $1 billion for it, realized early, like, we're not going to be able to make any money. We're out. So they got it on like a 50% discount. Fox is paying for like 50% of it. So NBC didn't even buy the U.S. Open for a normal rate. They got it on a discount, and they're still going cheap. Well, the PGA Tour, while dealing with this, obviously has LIV that has poached a lot of their players, and they can't compete, right? If LIV is going to offer $60 million for Tyrrell Hatton, what the fuck are you going to do? Let alone the hundreds of millions of dollars they're paying DJ, Koepka, Phil, Rahm. You're done. They're gone. So it was reported last week that Joe Pampliano, I might be screwing up his name, but he's a really good sports business insider. He had this long thing on LinkedIn, which I'm trying to get a little more active on, that the way their structure is going to work. Now, equity is not the same as giving you $100 million, right? So they're giving Tiger Woods $100 million in equity. These were the 4 names that I read. They just had specific numbers. $50 million to Rory and 30 to JT and to Spieth. Now, the equity doesn't have any value on the open market. Tiger couldn't just cash out next year for $100 million. It takes 4 years to vest, and then you can sell or cash out 50% of it. And ideally, when you get equity in something, and listen, since I've been in the podcast world, I only do things that I have ownership in, right? It doesn't always mean upfront cash, but big picture, to have equity ownership in anything, I found for myself incentivizes me greatly. I am much more inclined to do a podcast every single day, knowing that I got skin in the game. It's fucking mine. Why wouldn't I? Wouldn't be the same if you just paid me a fixed cost to have the same type of juice. Look at LIV. Like, if you gave me $100 million, look at DJ. It's a great example. And they gave him $150 million plus, and he even admitted, like, yeah, I don't practice much. Hard to blame him. It's human nature. Most people are not wired like Tiger and Brady. Most people, even high-level people, are closer to DJ. Yeah, it's like, I've already made hundreds of $millions. Now I got this money guaranteed. I don't need to work as hard. We're all somewhat similar in our wiring upstairs. So when you give the equity now, it does incentivize these guys, even though they will never, ever make as much as they would have got going to LIV, but to give everything they have to the product. Now, the problem is Tiger's somewhat of an outlier. I would even say Rory. Jordan and Spieth are good examples. 2 guys around 30 years old that have been prominent, famous members of the PGA Tour, that the tour needs because of their fame, equity with us, the fans, in terms of name recognition, and just their star power, is to do everything possible to help out the sport. And I do think they're trying, but how do you do something that you don't even know what to do? Like, where would they even begin to start? And this is the thing. I understand why the Arthur Blanks and the Steve Cohens and all these guys with money get involved, because it's an opportunity. And they're so flush with cash, like, why not? We each put in a couple $100 million, raise $3 billion, see where it goes. Ideally, it turns into a $10 billion operation. But there is a chance, if they stay splintered, this equity won't amount to much. Because right now, and for the foreseeable future, they don't have much going. And the only way, it's not about walk and talks on the course where they put a ear pod into someone's ear and they talk for a hole. That's cool. Or the Friday happy hours where, a famous player sits down with Smiley and chops it up for an hour. That's also cool. That's not doing anything. It's not moving the needle. The only thing that matters, the only thing to make this business and this equity worthwhile for everyone involved, the players, these rich people that are put fronting the money, is to get everyone back playing together. Not 4 times a year, but like 15. And I think the challenge is to get these LIV guys to come back. Like, what's their incentive? Now, the moment some of them stop dropping out of the majors because they don't meet the qualifications, Yeah, they're more incentivized to sign off. But DJ won a major a couple years ago, and he's into the Masters for life. Like, he's in these majors for a while. Rahm won the U.S. Open, won the Masters last year. Like, he doesn't have to worry about that. Bryson DeChambeau, same thing, in the majors for years to come. So I think they have a complicated problem on their hand. Now, the good thing is, LIV Golf last week was fun. I just saw highlights in Australia. Australia is a place that loves golf, like Japan with baseball. It works. If you put an event there, it's going to be a party. It is going to pop on television. But I didn't watch. I would imagine most of you didn't watch. You might have seen some highlights on YouTube, but you didn't watch the event. And that's not going to change. Like, they're not going to be able to draw eyeballs. Now, the one thing is, because of their money backed by Saudi, I don't know if they truly care. They just want to take over the PGA Tour. But remember, the PGA Tour pushed back after they went on TV on whatever, June 6th, and talked about the merger, because those guys want to control everything. And when you're paying the money, when you're the guy signing the check, ultimately they're the boss. So if they were going to get the majority of the juice and fund all the money, they were going to have a lot of say. And clearly the PGA Tour has been hesitant to let just basically a country run the professional game. And I think that's a problem that's not necessarily going to get fixed. Now, a report this week that Rory McIlroy, who dropped off the player board, is back on the player board. Maybe he thinks that he could help get this thing over the line. He's buddies with Yasser. I don't know, man. I don't feel great. In all these talks about equity and payments, none of us care. None of it matters. It just truly does not. It's like, what contract will LeBron James signs next? I don't care. He's already super rich. Like, I don't care if it's 150 million, 130. None of it matters. Where's he going to play? And that's the world of golf right now. Where are they going to play? And that's a problem for LIV. They announced today that their season-ending tournament, the equivalent of like the Tour Championship for the PGA Tour, they played at East Lake, which some people have problems with the course. I think it's fine. They're going to Bolingbrook, which I had never heard of in Chicago. It is a course a lot of people have been posting about on the internet that you can play during the week for $60. On the weekend, it's $85. A course me and you would have no problem playing. Sounds like probably a fun little track in Chicago. Here's the problem. Chicago is home to some of the best golf in America. Hell, LIV played last year at Rich Harvest Farms, which is one of the nicer courses, according to Golf Digest, in the state. But they have all these other courses like Butler National, Medina, Olympia Fields. These courses have hosted major championships. But LIV has no access to any of these courses. None. Can you imagine if I said that Greg Norman announced that LIV's final event will be at Pebble Beach? Like, damn, might peek at that. A huge part of golf is the course at the professional level. It draws us in. Last year, I remember how excited I was to watch them play at LA Country Club. It's why Augusta is such a big deal. It's why the Open Championship is so unique. The links golf, they travel around all these different courses in Scotland and Ireland and the UK. It's cool. It doesn't look like what we normally see. And then over the course of the rotation, you kind of get familiar with some of them, especially St. Andrews. No different than the US Open. You know they're going to play Pebble every once in a while. You know they're going to play Olympic Club. They played Wingfoot. I mean, they played Oakmont. Like, they kind of get in this rotation if you follow the sport. Like, LIV has no, because none of the public courses that are any good, they're in business with the PGA Tour. Torrey Pines, TPC, Scottsdale. None of these people are going to do, obviously TPC Scottsdale because it's owned by the PGA Tour, but Torrey Pines is a good example. They're just not going to do business with LIV. And then LIV has no access to any of the country clubs. Besides, like, if Trump wants to get involved. So the country clubs that might draw, like, damn, they're playing this weekend at, pick the course. I'll watch. It's just not going to happen. So I think LIV has a course problem on top of just we're not watching. But I do think that would help domestically. Internationally, I see what they're doing. They're trying to spread out. It's cool. Australia is cool. Once they go in some of these weird time zones, like it's in the middle of the night. But I understand it. The problem is they would love to have 4 or 5 events here that are really big. They went to Las Vegas. No one paid attention. Partly it was during the Super Bowl. But I don't know. I mean, you can talk about equity, you can talk about all these payments. Until everyone gets on the same page, it's not going to be worth it to anyone. When I first got in the podcast business, I got involved with kind of this startup. And one thing I was like, okay, I'm going to fight for some equity in the company. And I got a little. Company went under. Now, the PGA Tour is not going to go under. LIV Golf's not going to go under. But the only way for equity to matter is for the company to succeed, is for it to keep going up. So your equity actually has value. And I don't know. I'm not very bullish on the situation. Just like in theory, team golf. Last week, the Zurich. It should be cool because you watch the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup, and it's awesome. The difference is, especially let's use the Ryder Cup, there is something special when you put on your country's flag. Obviously, the international team is dudes from all different countries. But you know, when we send a team, either across the pond or domestically, that our 12 guys are going to be representing America. So, yeah, they play, 4-ball, they play, alternate shot, whatever. But it's still like us, America. It's why when the World Cup happens, everyone gets excited for American soccer. Even though we consistently never do shit. Rightfully so. We're not as good. Like, I know the Lakers played the Nuggets close. They're not as good. There's a reason they have lost 12 of 13 games against those guys in the playoffs. They're just not as good. So it's understandable. But at least you're like, they got LeBron and Anthony Davis. And no different than us. Even if we go across the pond and lose, at least we're rolling out some heavy hitters. Koepka, Scheffler, JT, Spieth, whoever, even those guys were shitty. But you know what I mean? I think wearing your country's flag is a big deal. When you just watch team golf in a random event, I don't really feel it. Especially, and the problem for the Zurich is, beside Rory and Shane Lowry, which Rory had never played the event. And they told a story on the broadcast. I just watched a little on Sunday that it all kind of started when they had lunch or something during the holidays, during like Christmas time. They both live, I think, in Jupiter, Florida. They're obviously boys from the Ryder Cup. And maybe Rory's like, I want to do it. I don't know exactly how it happened, but that's not typically the tandem you see. Most of the groups, when I looked at the leaderboard, I'm like, I've never heard of these people. I have never heard of these players. Or they're like random fringe PGA Tour players. That's a problem. But I think one thing with pro golf, and maybe it can get a little redundant, I don't think it necessarily will if you shorten up the season a little bit once they get back together, is watching 3 or 4 guys coming down the stretch trying to beat each other. I think team golf kind of works when you're just playing at your local club with 3 of your boys. And you're like, I'm paired with Bill playing Jeff and Tyler. And we're playing $5 a hole. And you don't even play alternate shot. Maybe you play best ball. And you do some sort of whatever you do. And it kind of works. But it's very loose. When you play a serious match that way, I don't know if it works when you don't have the flag associated with the person. Because that's what draws us into the Ryder Cup. Not necessarily the style they play. That'd just be my take. Because if you told me the Ryder Cup, they played individual matches, just match play every day instead of the team events, I don't think it would phase it at all. I'm glad they do it the way they did it, or do it. But let's say they cut, instead of playing 3 or 4 team matches and the individual at the end, they just had 3 of the 5 were all individual match plays and you just rotated. I think it would have the same vibe. I really do. And I don't know, man. I know LIV has tried to force the team element, and I understand, because in high school I played golf and football. And at the time, in like 2001, 2002, 2000, golf was nowhere as cool, and the amount of people that play doesn't even come close to today. So I remember feeling like kind of lonely. Like I didn't want to just hit balls by myself. I didn't like it that much, because in football, you're so used to like, okay, I got to go run gassers. Well, I'm doing it with like all my buddies, or we got to practice double days today. You're doing it with everybody. In golf, it's like, well, you better get ready for this tournament. You got to practice by yourself 3 of the 7 days, beside a couple days of practice where you practice with other guys. It's a very, very lonely sport. So I don't think these guys are lying on LIV when they say, I like the team element. But when you're watching LIV or just paying attention to it, I never check the teams. Where's everyone? I just look at the individual leaderboard. And I go whenever they're playing to live.com and check the leaderboard. Individual leaderboard. Like, what's DJ doing today? Where's Bryson? How's Cam Smith doing in Australia? I don't care about the team because that's not the way the sport is constructed. There's a reason doubles tennis, while it's fun if you're just an amateur tennis player, most of the popular matches in my lifetime are singles. Pete Sampras against Agassi, Federer against Djokovic, Nadal against Federer. That's what we enjoy watching. And I think that's a problem for golf. Because I think LIV and the Saudis really want to force this team element, and I just don't think we'll care. And it's one of those things, hey, John, don't pigeonhole the way you think about something. Things change. Once upon a time, the NFL played 14 games. Now they're about to play 18 with multiple buys. Things change. But the setup of the sport and the way you operate doesn't change. I think whenever you try to do something drastic, fans aren't dumb. The in-season tournament, all the media told me was how cool it was. It meant nothing to the majority of people. Ratings, people didn't even watch. The Lakers won. Cool. Even they'd be the first to tell you. We'd gladly trade the in-season tournament to win some games in fucking April against the Nuggets. Because that's what matters. Winning events as an individual matter. Winning majors as an individual matter. Winning the Ryder Cup matters, for sure. I kind of think that's a one-off. So I think golf's going to have to figure that out because I do think they're going to try to shoehorn some of this team stuff. And I'm just not sure any of us are going to care. And I'm a good example. I'm 39 years old. I've been watching golf for 30 plus years. I love it. I think I'm going to have a hard time getting behind it. I really am. And it's going to have a hard time like, okay, I got to sit down and watch this. My first question would be, why? That's what I said during the in-season tournament. Why? No one can. Well, it's something fun. For what? Like, what is it? The individual like tournaments they have in soccer have been well established for a long time. That's not a comparable parallel to what we're trying to do over here and what we're used to and what we like. All for making little changes if you have to, even if I don't agree with them. The NFL does it all the time. Hip drop tackle, the way you can tackle the quarterback, and we all bitch and moan. Golf's going to try to do some rollback stuff. In theory, I get it. Don't think it's needed, but I understand it. Like you're not going to change the sport. The sport of professional golf is 150 people trying to finish in the top 10. And one guy's going to win and the next guy's going to try to finish in the top 5. And they're all battling over a purse of money. That's the essence of it all. Not like teams and this guy. No, it's not the way it works. And I hope we don't change it because I paid attention because I thought it was cool. Lowry and Rory. Of course, those guys won. They're the best 2 players there. Most of the guys you couldn't point out of a lineup if I offered you $1 million. So it's going to be very, very interesting where they go. And if that's a big sticking point with the potential finality of this merger, I think that's a mistake. Appreciate everyone listening. Like I said, get in the mailbag at GoloPod, and I'll answer your questions.